What we're seeing at the Supreme Court is a sickening hypocrisy, as some justices feel free to accept lavish gifts and vacations from billionaire friends. They're refusing to help everyday Americans just trying to get a fair shake. Congress has clear authority to oversee the federal judiciary, and that includes making sure that the highest court in the land is held to equally high ethical standards.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on the Judiciary Committee's proposed legislation to set up a code of ethics for the Supreme Court justices. The bill would give the court 180 days to adopt and publish a code of conduct, allowing the public to submit ethics complaints that a randomly selected panel of lower court judges would review. It would establish brand new rules for disclosure of gifts and travel, and it would impose recusal rules pertaining to gifts, income, and other potential conflicts. It comes after a year marked by ethics scandals for the nation's highest court, with 3 justices this year alone being the subject of exposés of highly questionable behavior by the justices themselves or their spouses. Just this past weekend, the New York Times reported on Justice Clarence Thomas's conflicts of interest, with this reporting, quote, Justice Thomas has received benefits, many of them previously unreported, from a broader cohort of wealthy and powerful friends. They have included major donors to conservative causes with broad policy and political interests, and much at stake in Supreme Court decisions. Let's bring in one of the lawmakers behind the Supreme Court reform bill and broader efforts to hold the Supreme Court accountable, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat of Rhode Island, a member of the Judiciary Committee. We've been talking about Senator Tuberville. I want your quick thoughts on what he's going through. It seems he's now on about his 7th effort at answering whether or not he believes white nationalists are racist. His latest view is that he does. But this is not some, as I just said, he's not some backbencher with no power. He's single-handedly holding up military promotions and really impeding the Biden administration's efforts at military readiness and a fully staffed command structure. What are your thoughts about what could be done?
Well, the first thing is a Republican problem. Mitch McConnell is the leader of the Republicans, and this senator's comments are something that Mitch McConnell needs to address and be accountable for and put to rest. The second problem is a national security problem, which is that the senator is also interfering with the ability of our government to manage the military and to get people into promotions. And it clearly affects national security interests in a very harmful way. So we need to either get him to knock it off or figure out a way to get all these promotions through so that our military can continue to operate successfully and safely.
I bring it up because it seems that the two parties are operating on different planets, right? On Earth One, which should be a bipartisan effort for ethics, transparency, and some sort of standards that have to be adhered to by all Supreme Court justices. On Earth Two, they're attacking the media that covers the justices who are breaking their own meager disclosure rules. I mean, how do you get anything done when there is an almost unprecedented inability to acknowledge the facts as they are here on Earth One?
Well, I think you just push forward. When it's obvious that you're doing the right thing, you just push forward and you go on to the next step and then the next step after that. And for us, the next step is to have a markup in the Senate Judiciary Committee on the Supreme Court ethics reform bill, see how Republicans behave, continue to do our investigative work, see whether their behavior changes as this problem continues to get worse and worse and worse, and just keep pushing forward. And I think there's a parallel argument to be made that in many respects, the way Republican senators are behaving about the Supreme Court is proof positive of our case about the politicization of the Supreme Court. In ordinary circumstances with a neutral Supreme Court, you wouldn't see Republicans defending this stuff. It makes no sense. It's only because the court is delivering for the big donors who also back the Republicans that we're seeing this charade of disinterest and partisanship accusations.
And it's amazing. I mean, the Supreme Court is now more politically unpopular. More people disapprove of the Supreme Court than even disapprove of most Republican standard bearers. So I wonder if you think that it won't be a come to Jesus. It won't be realizing that, well, of course, Supreme Court justices should have an ethics code that's on par with other federal judges. It might just be the political dead weight of carrying the court. Or what do you think breaks the Republican obstruction?
Well, ultimately, the 2024 election, if they continue down this path, more immediately the weight, as you describe it, of the piling up evidence of misconduct. We're now up to 6 billionaires engaged in the care and feeding of just 2 justices. And we're only beginning to learn about the full depths of the problem. And the third prospect is the judicial conference, the judges themselves, to put some pressure on the Supreme Court justices whose behavior the judges have to know is wrong because they live within the rules. And through the judicial conference, they can clean up themselves. So there are 3 avenues.
What is your sense of where this legislation will head to next? Can you just take us through the process?
Well, it's going to come up on Thursday. It'll be held over in the ordinary course of the judiciary process. On July the 20th, we'll have the proper markup of the bill, and we'll go through the process of considering amendments and voting ultimately on the bill to move it forward. And then we'll see how that turns out. The bill is then on the Senate floor, and we'll work with Chairman Durbin and Leader Schumer to try to make sure that we have a unified caucus and see whether the Republicans are interested in proceeding. And as I said, we're at the beginning of finding out the full depths of the problems of the Supreme Court. As it gets worse, the pressure will build, and we want to be ready with a good, solid bill that we can pass.
It's just amazing. I mean, we'll cover, obviously, the process as it makes its way through, but the piece that seems to be shifting underneath our feet is the politics of this, that the court is really plunged in terms of the public's esteem of it. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, no one wiser on these issues. Thank you very much for spending some time with us on it today.
Thanks so much.